So today we're going to talk about self-sabotage, which inherently is a very large subject with a lot of different influences, internal, external, and ideally we'll get to dive into a lot of it. And I think from a launch point or a springboard point, I'd like to start just really think about it. If it really stems from a desire, in my opinion, I want something that I don't have. I want something bigger, better. If this, then that. And from that point, I'm going to take an initiate. I'm going to take a personal journey on how do I get there. But I think maybe we'll start on some of the pitfalls of self sabotage. If you have some initial thoughts on, I can think of countless times where I've completely fallen short. I've and I've personally flattened my own tires on the journey.
Yes.
And unbeknownst to me, even too. Is it subconscious? Is it conscious? And I think sometimes it's a mix of both. Maybe I'll go out on a limb and say, and if you have a different opinion on it, is I'd say there's probably more unconscious influence into it than intentionally conscious.
Yeah.
So
this is a great topic. Flattening the tires on the journey. I like that.
Yeah. Take the air out on myself without even knowing it.
It's not, I believe, I know this is a bigger problem than we realize it is. Okay. Because we're just not aware. Self-sabotage so much in our lives, right? And you just started with something which I thought was profound. And you said that there needs to be a direction or a need or a want to improve oneself, do better than oneself, if that makes sense, to be on a path. Because you're not self-sabotaging when shit's bad. You're self-sabotaging when you're on the path to something good. So first and foremost, you're on the path.
You're on the path.
You know,
and if I don't want something, I'm going to sabotage intentionally. So yes, but so inherently, I want, at a simplest level, I want something, whatever that is, X, Y, Z. I'm here. I want this. And it could be physical. It could be internal. It could be a change in our environment, just on and on. And I think we could even dice it down into some internal movement forward versus, or not even or an actual physical. Let's just take even physical fitness. People self-sabotage all the time. The gym is too far, it doesn't open early, or it's too open, closes late. Just a lot of those are just baseline excuses. But I think at a core level, and this is something that you have probably witnessed, you way more than I have working with people. Have you seen any relative patterns in some of that self-sabotage when it comes to fit? Let's just focus on physical, the external body.
Okay. And as we go through this, and so people listening, I'm going to challenge all of you and invite everyone to reflect on your own lives and start to think about the way that you have self-sabotaged things. Because until there's that awareness, there will be no change. And this may not make any sense to anyone, but we're all doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. And we do it in all areas of our lives, but the physical fitness thing is interesting. So there's definitely an underlying theme around self-sabotage, and it's fear of the unknown. Okay. Because when we sabotage things, it puts us back into a space of familiarity. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What's familiar?
Yeah.
Once we start getting into an unknown space, and it's usually quite a positive space, by the way.
Yeah.
We can't control it. Things are happening. We have a fear. This is unknown. And the people that are very successful out there doing different things, and whatever it is, business or even relationships, they're open to the unknown.
Yeah.
There's a curiosity of the unknown. Okay. Because when we sabotage things, it puts us back into this place of, oh, this is familiar. At least I know this. It prevents us from moving forward. Okay. Prevents us from moving forward, which is interesting because as human beings, there's an innate nature in us to create and evolve and do things, but there's also an innate nature in us to have safety and security in the known.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so on physical fitness.
Sure. Yeah, we could start. That would be a good one just to start, and we'll go into the internal thought process. And even if it's not physical, because there's our internal world, what's the commitment we have to make internally and externally? There's different levels to our, I'll call it this self journey into an achievement, into a goal, into a proverbial destination of I have a daydream, I have a fantasy, it's putting that out there. So then backtrack, I have to take an initiant step. And I really like the way you phrase that in the sense of there's an unknown. We're in uncharted waters where I'm somewhere I've never been before. So now the boundaries are down. I'm not sure where the bumpers are. I'm not sure where my thresholds are. I'm not sure how to communicate here, how to navigate, how to move forward. And sometimes it's very incremental steps. And maybe even that little bit can come off and feel a little wonky, or you maybe feel a little insecure in this environment.
Yeah.
So backtracking, even let's go back to that starting point of where, and I interrupted you as far as that
That's right.
physical fitness. I think that maybe there's a difference, and maybe I'm kind of convoluting some of the stuff where I'm giving too many. There's an excuse. I guess there's the excuses, but what's the source code for the excuse? I guess that's more the self sabotage.
Yeah. And putting myself in the fitness industry, and I don't like that term anymore because fitness is such a small piece of wellness. So I like
Mm-hmm.
really saying the wellness industry now, or the behavioral change industry, or
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it. Most people fail,
sure.
which is strange, right?
Yeah,
And you and I have talked about this, and I think this is for another time, another conversation. But people they've got a finite mindset for an infinite game.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, because
Mm,
that's what it's not getting fit in 12 weeks.
right.
Fit healthy is a life. It's a
Yeah.
lifetime, and people think they want it quickly. And it's not about just going to move. It's also what you eat and what you think, and all these.
Right.
There's a lot of things chemically that have to happen in the body to put on muscle, lose body fat, and feel better. I always ask people who are going down this path, "Why are you wanting to do this?
Okay.
Why are you wanting to do this?" And really uncover the why, because when you uncover the why, you'll find the way. And it's got to be more than just the number on the scales.
Sure.
Okay. And because some people will exercise 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 times a week, 6 times a week, 7 times a week, probably over training, and not lose any weight. But they may be feeling mentally so much better because they haven't seen the scales come down. And by the way,
Fascinating. Yeah.
muscle weighs much more than body fat.
Yeah.
I've seen this countless times. Okay, particularly with women. My scales haven't gone down. My weight stayed the same. My clothes are feeling better, are fitting better. In fact, I'm wearing smaller size clothes. Energetically, I feel better. The scales haven't gone down. I'm failing.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that self sabotage? No. But then it leads to this is not working. It's not helping. Oh, it's too much hard work.
Yeah.
Back out, I go drinking, not going to move and exercise, staying up late, whatever else it is, right?
Yeah.
That is a form of self sabotage as well. Okay.
Interesting. Because so I wonder too, and we don't have to stay in the fitness. I know that's always a good one to start because people everybody can relate to that.
Particularly,
And yeah, absolutely. I think there's a sense of scale, and I think it's interesting because if the goal is, we'll use this same example. I want to lose arbitrary 10 pounds. And I think there is that continuous goal of health versus setting the right, this gets into goal setting. Am I going after health, general health? Am I going after just this 10 pounds? Because if I achieve that, or if I hit 8 and I'm not seeing and it's taking me longer, I'm going to be much more apt to give up and get derailed. But I guess, is that getting into effective? Do I have the scale and scope correct on this initiation journey? If there's maybe, I don't know if I know where I'm going with this, but I don't know if I'm getting it out correctly in the sense that is my trajectory, am I setting the dials correct?
good call. I always ask people, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why? Because this is a lifestyle choice. You go to the gym or exercise, move 5, 6, 7 times a week, and then go out and eat pizza and drink beers 5, 6 times a night, and
Mm-hmm.
just it doesn't add up. It's got to be a lifestyle choice
Okay.
and change. And a lot of people aren't willing to change certain things in their lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult. So what do? They say, I tried this exercise thing. I've joined the gym. It didn't work. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Give up. Because it's very comfortable being where they are.
That makes sense.
Okay. Because things have to change. There has to be lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
If we want to improve our wellness, body, mind, and spirit, there needs to be elements of change. There has to be. There also needs to be a lot of awareness. I need to be aware that what I've been doing hasn't worked. What do I need to do? These are the plan. This is what I need to do. I need to exercise and move. Okay, great. Probably need to watch what I eat less than what I'm putting in.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Maybe I should look at my stress levels, all these different things. Do I have a mindfulness practice? All of this. It's challenging. It's hard work. It's hard work. So rewarding, but it's hard work. And then I set off on this path and I'm all inspired. I see this every January.
Sure.
Okay. I see it every January. It's a time, New Year's resolutions. It's not the first 2 weeks of January because people are just struggling after the holiday break and families and food and getting into things. It always kicks in around mid-January every year.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what country or culture I'm in, this is exactly what happens. By March, those people have given up. The vast majority have given up.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Okay? And it's multiple things. And I think people want results so quickly.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
taken decades to get to where they are,
Sure.
but they want the results so quick.
Yeah.
And I think they're looking for results in the wrong place so often, because the results on our, say, our mental health and energy, they come quite quickly. Hey, I
Hmm.
feel better. I've got more zest. But they're fixated on a scale or how they look.
Right.
Okay. And in the fitness and wellness space, something that I'm very aware of at the moment is the influence that, say, social media has on people with these beautiful bodies. And this is how I look. And people
Sure.
think this is how I should look. That's what a fit version of a human being should look like.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's totally fabricated.
So
Right?
that's actually that ties into a completely different subject of dysmorphia, body
Body
dysmorphia, visual dysmorphia, not understand. Yeah, the correlation, and also too now you get into the pathophysiology of yourself and how your ideal body looks versus somebody who's picture perfect. But that's that form of self that ties into self sabotage. It comes back in because those are those external feeders that are either giving you evidence or false evidence or just some type of disruptive view.
Mm-hmm.
And that interpretive view, how strong is your resolve for it? How strong is the change? Was it just the one thing? And I guess that comes back to where I was saying was like, where are the dials set? Are the dials set to a lifestyle in this particular one, an ongoing lifestyle? So it's incremental changes, and then which I'm going to tie into something else, or is it just is it too short term? Right? I'm not getting the evidence I want quick enough?
I think it's all of the above.
Is it? Yeah,
I do, Paul. I really do. Discourage.
sure.
Discourage. Okay, people become discouraged if they hit an obstacle or get set back a little, and then there's this fear of failure. People need courage
Yeah,
when doing this, and any change, any evolution, right? New relationships, a new job, whatever that is, changing my lifestyle requires courage.
yeah,
You are going to have setbacks. That's a given.
right.
That is a given, but it's how we look at those setbacks. Don't let those setbacks define you, because I think that's what we do a lot as well. We get set back and then we look for ways to self-sabotage. Because when you
Okay,
have a setback, it doesn't feel good. There's a few
right.
people out there that go, oh, I learned from my lessons. I love the setbacks. Yeah, we learn from them. But initially there is this,
Sure.
oh boy. And so we've got to be ready for this. We've got to be prepared for this. Okay, so there's going to be times, Friday night, I'm going to have a few, not me personally, I don't drink, but have a few beers and grab a pizza. That's okay.
Mhm.
That is okay.
Yeah. And I guess that falls into another sense of rigidity. I know that I've had times where I've been overly rigid on myself, and one little thing, I mess up one little spot and I get derailed. So I guess and that gets into, did I set proper expectations for myself? Did I allow enough flexibility in it? Because I think that's one thing too, is that you have to be a little flexible because you are going to get derailed. You are going to get off on the path.
Fluidity.
The fluidity. Sure, I like that. The fluidity better than flexibility. But in that same realm of thought, do I have enough error window that I am able to going to keep it on course? And I would even argue too, and so, or not argue, but I would say that what is the external world? Friends, family, coworkers, they're going to have influences, and are you aligning in the right? Are you aligning in the right locations where you're getting the proper
So
feedbacks as well too?
Environment
Yeah.
and people I want to touch on for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
I want to touch on environment and people, but first I want to touch on the limitations we place on ourselves, because we base all of our experiences off our past. We
Mhm.
base our future off our past.
Sure. Absolutely.
This hasn't worked in the past. Oh no, I can't do that. Oh no.
Yeah.
Good luck trying to move forward if you're basing everything off your past and you don't want to be like the version of yourself in the past and you want
Yeah.
to move forward. So we look too often, we're looking in the rear vision mirror.
Yeah.
Okay, too often we're looking back and making decisions of how we handled something. We weren't the same person.
Yeah. Good. I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was just
weren't the
thinking.
same,
Yeah.
We weren't the same person. What's that saying? Every time I step into the river, it's different. I'm not the same person. It's not
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
river, right?
Heraclitus. Yes. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I love that, because we're not.
Right.
But we treat things and projects like we are.
Right.
There's so much wonder out there when we open ourselves to the possibilities, but when we feel ourselves getting a little bit of progress somewhere, feels good, right?
Yep.
Feels good. Then all there's a knockback or a setback, and there's that fear of failure, and then that's when that self-sabotaging influence starts to come in.
Sure. It could also be a fear of success too. What am I going to do? What's my responsibility once I get there?
Doesn't it sound strange?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does.
It's
But it's,
a
and I
fear
think
of
that's one of
success.
fear of success. And I think people, that's one of those ones that people, a lot of people don't recognize or realize or have enough self awareness to identify, because there is sense of once I achieve that goal, it's a beautiful daydream. It's a wonderful fantasy. But once I'm there, I don't know what that's going to be like. So how am I going to respond? What's the responsibility level that now I have to accept in this realm? There's a point there where it's going to be easier to retract into the old programs, the memories of what worked before for the variant level that I'm not trying to go after. I would say too that there's, I guess that comes into, I don't want to go back into setting the right dials on that and setting the right expectations and having a softness and fluidity to absorb that. And then there's also too, is this, are you doing this in a vacuum? Because there's the reality is there's again, there's the influences like we'll touch on as well too, the environment influences and environment modification, because we're the only creatures that actually are able to modify our environments. Mm. And again, it takes courage, like you touched on, and bravery into changing this. And now that I have this, now I'll touch on one more thing. I believe dialing back to the beginning is, what is some of that source code, in meaning that, is this a self-scripted journey? I want something. Am I really self-scripting it? Or is this kind of a societal end game, a societal structured end game? So this is the fantasy of maybe winning the lottery and I'm going to buy the big mansion and have the big yacht and all these other things, because we're fed images of what the idyllic billionaire, how they're going to run their life. Yeah, there's some daydream of some picture we've seen on Instagram or social media of that. So where I go with that is that, am I setting some of these, and where is my realism within the structure of a goal? So in that case, I'm saying a billionaire. So it's, I want to increase my income. I want to change my job, career path. And is this a self-scripted journey where it's a infinite game where I'm progressing, or am I following somebody? And I'll just say simply, am I following somebody else's dream? Am I following, or maybe there's somebody young that's out there that's listening, and am I supposed to be an attorney like my parents, or a doctor like my parents? And am I following their script, or is this a self-scripted one? So I wanted to go into that too, because that's going to instantly tie into potentially limiting beliefs, or those thought process of the basis. Where are you coming from?
Yes, I'm looking forward to digging into all of those, and
Yeah,
I agree completely. Something that I'm noticing more and more at the moment is the self-sabotage through comparison.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Self-sabotage through comparison, especially driven by social media. Okay. So on social media, we tend to put forward the best version of ourselves.
Sure.
Scripted texts and photos and stuff like that. And people see that. And people only know what they know. And I'm struggling, and this is hard work trying on this fitness wellness journey. And here's this person looking like that. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So it puts unreal expectations on people.
Okay.
By the way, this is, and as we go through this conversation, it'd be good to layer in some tips and tricks for people out there. Tips and tricks for people out there. Be very aware of the way you use social media and look at things. Okay?
Absolutely.
If you're looking through the lens of, oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool. But know that it's not real in most cases.
And and I'll add to that particular one only because I can't tell you, if I'm waking up in the middle of the night, I all of a sudden grab social media because I can't sleep, and there's a desire, I want to travel. Okay. And all of a sudden I'm looking, and there's 10 people I know that are in Italy or
Everyone's
Paris.
on holiday.
Everybody is. I'm like, they're traveling the world. I'm sitting here staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m, can't sleep. Yeah. And so then again, I keep using this phrase of getting derailed, but there is a sense of it's a setback. There is an emotional setback.
I can't do that. I feel like I'm failing already.
In my either it's in whatever that script is that you have, that response is, I know for personally, some of it is that it's, they have that choice. I don't have that choice. That's one of those knee-jerk things. We have all those things that we say to each other. That's not the truth. If I allocated X amount of capital, yes, there's always a choice, but we instantly grab onto things that we have some of those self-talks. And that in itself is a whole nother aspect of it. But I think you're right. I think to say that social media and people putting that fragmented, that sliver of their life on display that you get to see very quickly it gets embedded in our brains. It's in, and I think I do like how you said that, because there are times where I'm not attached to it. I have no attachment towards it. And I just see, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's really cool that they did that. Awesome. Good for them. And there's different times in our acceptance. But if we're on, again, I'll call this either a goal set journey, because we're really tying this into self-sabotage. How does that play? I'm only, in my mind, I'm 5%, 10%. I'm so far. I've got to climb this mountain just to finish or get near where I'm trying to achieve. And somebody already has it and they're doing it. There's no effort. And they just started on their journey. I've been doing it for 10 years.
But that's what you've seen.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
And they've put that on there on purpose to do that. Be mindful of who you follow, or be mindful of the reasons why you follow someone. So being very aware that what you're reading is you're seeing a very filtered fragment of someone's life and where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Number one piece of advice, particularly for younger people.
Yeah,
younger people that are really influenced by that don't have maybe the awareness just yet, but just realize that's
getting, because there's a real fantasy attached to that. And it seems, and if you have no contextual understanding of what it takes there, and in that young perspective, the efforts, the capital, or whatever those resources that require to do X of whichever you're looking at is.
There's something else to this as well, Paul.
Yeah.
Is then we tend to focus on what we don't have.
Absolutely.
So we see this, oh my God, look at his big figure, or look at their big house, or they've got a money, or they're on holidays, or they've got the trophy husband, or look at their perfect kids and their lifestyle. We tend to focus on what we don't have then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we're focusing on what we don't have all the time, and we're comparing ourselves to others, and we're quickly getting discouraged, lacking the courage to move forward, we're limiting and self-sabotaging ourselves over and over again. It's like death by 1,000 pricks. Do you know what I mean? These are things we have to be aware of. Very hard to change, but if you're aware of them, it makes things so much easier.
Yeah. I would imagine too, I touched on the self-scripting, but I know that we can build on, and that's some of the solution oriented, which I think we should get into at some point here, about changing those narratives as we go through. But you did have a few. That's a really good one. I think this watch what you intake, regardless, social media, the friends you hang out with, the influence.
Can we touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Your social circle actually is bigger than that.
Sure.
It's the people you work with. It's the people you surround yourself with. It's the voices you listen to, whether it's on podcasts or on the radio, or it's the music you listen to.
Absolutely.
It's all of these inputs, right?
I'm sure for some people that play video games, the games they play. Absolutely.
Be mindful of the influence it's all having on you. You may have friends that are very comfortable being comfortable. Okay? We know those friends.
Yeah.
And when you talk, I've got this goal, I'm doing this. Oh, rather you than me. That's not.
For sure.
Who are you hanging out with?
Right.
I've got some friends. You're one of them. I've got some friends that we get together, and all we talk about is the possibilities and potential.
Yeah. And the encouragement, the reinforcement.
No, we're not living in La Land. We're very real and and this comes from a place of vulnerability, because we identify our weaknesses and things that are getting us stuck in our place. But that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to work through those things, because we all have different limitations.
Yeah.
Or walls we put up in front of ourselves, and for us to identify what they are and how we can work through them will then only open us up to possibilities, because these limitations will always come back. It'll always be the same thing on repeat that stops us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it might even be a slightly different version or come out in a different way, but it's really this very similar, same type of,
It's the same.
It might just have a different outfit on, but it's the
different
same
outfit. It's the same dance, different players.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. It happens. And we tend to self-sabotage in the same ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see it a lot with clients that I work with on different areas, in relationships,
absolutely,
jobs, or the roles people take, or being a leader.
Yeah.
Different leaders making the same mistakes. And it's a form of self-sabotage in a way, right?
There is. Yeah. There's ways to, I think that I don't want to go too deep into this, but I think you touched on something really interesting there, but here, I'll come back to the leadership one. But I think that showing up in the same way for different aspects of your life, whether that's through relationships, love relationships, or family or friends, and then there's work relationships and work dynamics. And even too, when you're talking about love or money and health and these different categories, it is interesting. We as humans do carry certain shortcomings or these sabotage triggers, and they'll show up in different aspects of our life at different measure and different different velocities
but
depending on the subject.
they look the same.
Yeah, and they
It's
do.
the
Yeah.
same stuff
Yeah. If
over
you
and
were
over
really to
again.
dice it back and dissect it and peel the layers back, yeah, there would probably, and I don't know if everybody has enough awareness and self recognition to identify them. And this isn't an insult. We all do that stuff, that identification before we start peeling back the layers and really shining a light on that. It takes a while. And that is some of the stuff with self work or being mindfulness that is starting to peel back some of those layers of where you're hitting these roadblocks in multiple facets of our life. And it's not always the case. Sometimes we just, in this category of money, we tend to do this. In this category of love, we tend to do this. So I don't want to oversimplify it or over complexity. There are times that people have these different attributes, but I would say that we do show up in similar ways, dressed in different outfits for different subject matter.
Yes, yes, for sure. And the forms of self sabotage are varied. They're all based in the same foundation, usually of
Mm-hmm.
fear.
Yeah, fear.
Okay,
Yeah,
fear,
fear, lack, fear.
lack,
Yeah.
fear. Here's one that's really occurred to me recently. We're in the holiday times at the moment. As I grew up, I don't have extremely fond memories of my family holidays, and they finished at quite an early age. And then I didn't really have any for a long time. And what I've found is when I'm around families now or bigger holiday functions, I'm very uncomfortable.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean
And
that makes sense.
like very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
And it's not just current. I've thought of it's been going on for decades. I get
interesting.
this. It's a feeling of dread, and so what I do is I find ways not to go,
Yeah, I was
not
just
to
going to
go.
say there was probably an avoidance at
Oh,
some
there's an
point,
avoidance, not to go.
some level, and I wonder too that to dissect that a little bit or transfer that, I wonder where else, and you may not know where else that shows up potentially in your life with that connection of maybe a family environment
Many
dynamic.
places, and when I get out of my head and think about the feeling I have,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling, I go, oh, I've had this same feeling then. And I look back and go, it's the same sort of situation. So
Yeah,
I'm going on the feeling as opposed to the thinking of this, if that
that
makes
makes sense.
sense.
Absolute sense. Yeah,
And so it's a felt sensation in my body, and
yeah,
I can feel it. Everything in me is rejecting being in this environment, or I don't feel part of it. And so I just want to go back.
yeah. There's a disassociation
And
or a
so that's
separation, huh?
the separation. So that's one case for me.
Yeah,
But when it comes to being uncomfortable doing like going out on my own, being in new environments, culturally traveling, setting up businesses, doing things, new
yeah,
products, programming, I thrive.
yeah,
I thrive on that. And people go to me, oh my, I thrive. Put
yeah.
me in the safety and security of that family safe environment. I'm like, no, 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 no,
That's
no.
fascinating. I love
I
that.
don't
Yeah,
thrive there. So being uncomfortable, being
yeah,
comfortable is being comfortable, being uncomfortable. So
yeah.
it's part of this as well. And
Interesting. Yeah. I could see that. I actually, what's interesting, I just had something come up in just walking meditation or just in a day thought, is that within business partnerships myself. They've had a number of them. I'm not going to say they go sideways or anything like that. It's not something blowout. It's just more of these things where they shift and then having this little bit of fear and apprehension as I'm going up the mountain with somebody. Like, oh, will this be, is there a betrayal on the horizon? Or there's a little voice. There's
so
a
they
little,
get ahead of it.
yeah. So I just better get into self-sabotage. Putting a title of sabotage on it isn't the way I would interpret it, but it really is. Is it, should I back off? Should I maybe keep a little bit of distance? Should I, and even those energetic separations, I'm essentially I'm slowing, I'm putting a brake on there.
And you can feel it.
Yeah, you can feel it. I'm inhibiting some forward momentum. And in this scenario, this other person or people don't know that I'm doing that, but I'm doing it. So
relationships, romantic and friendship wise, is one that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to.
absolutely.
I think most people can relate to having a broken heart. Remember that first time, that first broken heart, and the second one, and the third one. But it hurts, right? And then you start to put up this barrier.
Yeah.
You start to put up this barrier to protect yourself. And so when you get into a relationship, and things could be going great, but then you start to think, oh, something's coming soon. So I'm going to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get ahead of this to protect myself. And I think that's what happens. Subconsciously sabotage relationships, particularly romantic.
Yeah.
And what I find the older people get, the more baggage we've come into
absolutely.
a relationship with, that there's more of that sabotage heading into it.
And I'm from a recognition standpoint too. Obviously, we internalize things, but there's clearly observational of other people in our surrounding and our sphere that we watch. And I would say that sometimes it's when there's a comfort level, when the comfort level comes in and the silence comes in, and you're like, oh, this is really good. That's when people sometimes they get a little bit nervous. They get a little bit like, I don't want to lose this. There's an attachment to it. And then I would say that I might get ahead of it, or I might start stress test. And not me particularly, I'm saying like you start stress testing it, because I've been on the other end of the stick where they start stress testing the environment. If it's going to go bad, this could go bad. And all of a sudden they start applying. And I'm thinking even back in my 20s and dating scenarios, and all of a sudden somebody's adding stress into the environment or picking little fights and stuff like that, where it's like there was nothing wrong with this situation. And I don't understand why it changed. Being on both sides of that. And I have no doubt that I've done that to other people. And I don't want to say just in relationships and business and in other environments, but it's interesting. These are the unconscious actions of the sabotage. I'm sabotaging the situation, or maybe in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if it survives this, then we're going to be good. But on the other end of that stick, it doesn't really survive because you've changed it.
Yes.
Yeah. You've changed
the dynamic. Yourself up for failure. You've written the script.
Yeah.
The script is familiar to you. It's what you know.
Yeah. And then when it, in this case, we're talking about when it doesn't survive it, you're like, I knew. And then it's
confirmation and rinse and repeat.
I win. I was so smart. And then the next time I go in, what happens is that window shortens. I'm going to be quicker to do that next time. And that's what I think what you're saying too, with the age, the baggage, but I think that the cadence actually shortens. I'm going to be the quicker, you're going to do those things quicker, maybe even preemptively earlier on. And that's where I don't think people recognize it. They don't know they're doing it. So
the self-sabotage becomes very protective by nature.
Yeah, it's protected by nature.
Protected by nature.
I'm going to protect this environment so much. I'm not going to allow anybody in, but maybe I'll let them in a little bit to see it. And they looked at me funny. It's over with. It was dead before it started.
Oh, okay.
I'm going off.
No, that's good. I want to jump straight to some solutions here, because I think it's an important one. You've just touched on it, and that is becoming the observer of one's thoughts.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this may be foreign to many people, or it may not be, but it's such a great technique. It's quite hard to do. But when you're caught up in your thoughts and overthinking and you're creating pathways and things, it's so hard to make sense. You can't see the forest through the trees because you're caught up in it. And this is the process of mindfulness and meditation, right? And so sitting, I like to do this sitting. It's more comfortable. Calm the system, ground yourself, and start to be the observer of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get caught up in it. Be the observer.
I'm glad you said that, not to get caught up, because I want to touch on that too.
Be the observer of the situation and see it for what it really is. And you start looking at the players and how you're involved, and you will notice that it's all made up.
Sure, yeah. I wish I could remember
fragments of truth.
Yeah.
And then you'll see that, hey, I've created this situation scenario that's not even true. It hasn't happened yet. Mm-hmm. Basing it off the past, not in the present, or really looking forward to the future of what could be.
Sure.
Okay. And so I think that's an important one. That is the basis for all of the work I do.
Yeah.
That mindful view of the present moment.
Which in itself is I think that's a really good subject matter that I would like to expand a little bit on too, because let me paint a couple, I don't want to say the dark side of that, but that's not really the right way. Because I also think too that sometimes I know that my personal experience too is that I'll be the observer, recognize the awareness. Like, why is this silly creature doing this, saying this, and walking out of a situation and be like, that was really odd that I behaved in that way. And you start peeling back the layers. So you start recognizing, and you're like, interesting, I dig deep. And all of a sudden, I would say that I've had situations that I've made it overly complex. And now instead of just working on one or two things, and I'm going to get back to the self-sabotage, but I'm working on, I don't know, just 50 things. So when I'm bringing these into a situation of I want to achieve complex, I'm overcomplicating the process. So I'm overstacking what I need, the obstacles of what I think I need to get out of the way. The resistance points aren't even there. There's no resistance. I'm adding a resistance point, thinking I have to work through something. So that's a little bit of that. I want to say the conflated dark side of that. I think that when you get back into setting the direction of it and the simplicity, please go.
Is it when you're in these situations, it sounds very heady.
Yes, very heady. Yeah.
Okay, so part of the grounding and technique of getting in and starting to observe your thoughts is try and observe your thoughts from your body and your mind. Listen, feeling the
So
sensations in the physicality of your body, trusting the intuition of your senses
yeah,
as to tell you what is going on, not thinking and creating stories up here. It's quite
right.
interesting.
I think that's really and this isn't, there's no divergence from our conversation with what you're talking about, because becoming grounded in the physical, I you've talked about this before, and I think it's an incredibly important part of it, not just getting lost in the etherical
Yeah.
mindset, which I want to add on to that as well, is and pulling that down into a practicality of next steps through your process of achievement, and not getting sidewinded, derailed off the path of self-sabotaging the situation, but having the recognition and the awareness. And I don't know if it's a good time to talk about some of an aspect of this, because I'm taking it a little bit, I don't mean to take it on this dark side of it, but I think we're, when we're working through some of these things, self-sabotage by essence is we'll call it a non-success. I don't want to call it a failure or a setback. One aspect too that I've recognized is getting so lost in the daydream, in the thought process, and this is part of the getting heady part, and that the goal set, unbeknownst to me, becomes predominantly a daydream rather than being creating physical action in the external world. There are things that need to be applied in a mental state of thought process, creative thinking, of depending on what it is. If it's a career path or something you're trying to do a presentation, there's thought process on that, because we talked about the physical and the mental. There's different applications, but taking an actual step, I've gotten so lost in the daydream of a goal set. That's all it ever is. It's a daydream. There's an addiction to the daydream, because that in itself, by essence, there's a comfort and an ease if it stays up here. I'm not actually moving forward in a physical, modifying my environment way.
I'm going to push back a little.
Good. Please.
I love what you're saying. Actually, I don't know if I'm pushing back. I'm agreeing but adding.
Yeah. Or
I
bending a
think
little bit.
I think there needs to be an element of daydreaming for everyone to move forward, because you're imagining and visualizing a future self
Mm-hmm.
of what it could be, which then gives you the motivation, the inspiration to start putting things in action. Right? We
Mm-hmm.
need there
Yeah.
has to be this visualization. There
Absolutely.
has to be this vision
And
feeling.
I'm not poo pooing the idea of the visualization. Absolutely. I feel like there's a point where it can go, you can stay in it too heavy.
You're staying it too heavy, yeah.
Yeah. So that's,
And
but I agree with you. You have to, it has to be
there has to
visualized.
be this.
You have to get in your belly. You feel excited. I'm charged up. I'm ready to roll. And
That's so important.
yeah,
That felt sensation of excitement.
yeah.
I can mentally, and maybe this works for me, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it works for the majority of people. Is heady. I can see you got a business plan, you formulate something that.
Sure. You're connecting the dots.
But when you've got
Yeah.
that felt sensation
Mm-hmm.
of excitement, of reward, of oh, my future self could feel this, and I'm excited about the process, and it lights me up.
Yeah.
Game on, game on, and that's what we need to tap in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there will always be an element of unknownness and nervousness. And then you start to unpack. And I'm sure, I've got a feeling this is where you're going with
Talking
this,
about it. Yeah.
is you then go, oh my goodness, there's so much. There's so
Oh,
many
yeah.
steps to do. So we become overwhelmed by these grand projects. Oh, I've got to do
That's
this
true.
and that. And I think that then takes us next to this is where people have incredible ideas, visions,
Absolutely.
and they
Absolutely.
just,
That's,
I've
I
got
think
some
it's,
people that have just the most incredible ideas.
I think there's I remember if it was like Les who talks about the graveyard is filled with just millions of books and unwritten books and dreams, and I forgot who has that quote, but I'm sure many people have heard it before, and that would lead into benchmarks, celebrating the small wins, celebrating those little steps forward,
Benchmarks,
recognition.
milestones,
Yeah,
having someone that can support you on the journey to hold you accountable and lift you up.
yeah.
But I think breaking things down is really important. I can't remember the author of this book, The One Next Thing. Such a good book. I should know the author of that. But that one next thing, what's that? Because focus on that one next thing.
Yeah.
What's the next thing you're going to do to move you towards where you need to be?
Yeah. And I think there is a sense of personal celebration in there, because that's also giving yourself grace. That's giving yourself, you're observing the positive side of it instead of the 99 other things that I could complain about or recognize that I didn't hit.
So this is a technique to avoid self-sabotaging. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Rewarding yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
it could just be a pat on the back. Yeah, hey, well done. Acknowledging when you've worked through something, acknowledging the steps you have to go through to get somewhere so you can get
Mm-hmm.
that out of it. So it helps to fight that urge to self sabotage, bearing in mind that most people don't even know they're self sabotaging until they've done it. And
Yeah.
they go, oh, I just did that, you know?
I would say too, in that with the benchmarks, I guess this comes into really goal setting and just achieving, but also it touches into maybe time blocking or obviously working towards getting into flow state with the actionable steps. But overall, that deliverance of staying on course, I think is really where I'm getting lost in the thoughts on that because I'm having a little bit of that daydream of understanding of where it could go wrong. I think it's just, yeah, it's fascinating. So I guess what are some of the other, we talked about a lot of things that are the detrimental side of it.
Yeah.
And there are other things that can, I think the recognition is a big one. I think setting realistic and I think we talk about stretch goals and when I say realistic, I don't mean to be like over pragmatic. We have to dream, we have to visualize. I think we have to stretch what we want at our core level from a desire standpoint. I think, again, I'm not here to tell anybody what they think or don't think, but many times we want the highest and best. We want something really big and beautiful and inspiring. That's what we're striving for.
Yeah.
And not to get discouraged along the path there.
I think there needs to be at the core of all of this a sense of awareness so people can identify when they're starting to self sabotage to get
Mm-hmm.
an early to course correct. How does one do that? Okay. How does one do that? It could be journaling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And see, so every Monday morning I'm going to journal on my week where I am and what's going on. There needs to be a check-in because
That's
it's
interesting.
self-sabotage. It's not
You're
other
right.
sabotage. You're doing it
That's a
to
great point.
yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so through that process of self-awareness, and you can do that through as I said before, my thing that I go to and I teach other people to do is to practice mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
So mindfully, you can become aware of it before it happens. And through mindfulness, there's other techniques in your toolbox that you can pull out, like journaling. I've got a couple of friends that I know that will give me honest feedback.
Yeah,
Okay, hey,
that's important.
super important. I
Yeah,
trust them for that. I've got other people that I love, great friends. If I tell them the same thing, they'll be, oh, don't worry about that, dear. Don't
right,
worry,
right,
that's
right,
all
right,
good. You
right,
got
right.
that, Rich. But
I
that's okay.
That's okay. And let's touch on that too with the who, what, where, when from an alignment perspective. I do like that, but I touching back on to the journaling. That's a really interesting one because checking in. I think we don't have field awareness sometimes. We can get lost in the field awareness or recognition of the patterns. Of course, there's the awareness of what we're doing, but sometimes without having some way to recognize the patterns or where we're starting to approach or how we got
That's
a
it.
little bit off course.
Yeah.
How do you do that without something like a journaling or maybe whatever it is, some type of dictation notes into your phone, whatever that is that works for yourself. I actually do know some people record their voice too. They actually either voice to text or just record their voice.
Yeah.
Those are really fascinating. But I do want to jump on the alignment thing because that's a really good point. You can find people that, and I'm not going to over categorize it, but there's obviously people you can find negative feedback no matter what you do. It's just something's wrong about the world, about everything else. But there's also two people they're just the niceties. Like, no, that's fine. Don't worry about it. You'll be good. And then there's people that really do want to give you constructive feedback when you really ask it. But I would also think that you have to be in a state of receiving it or understand that's the environment that you're truly asking for. I'm not saying that just unwarranted criticism is a bad thing either. Sometimes you need to be jarred into, but I think to have those relationships. So I was just going to say one more thing is we, depending on the scale and the size of this goal set we're talking about, you can hire people. So there are things that we can hire professionals in some capacity, and that could be any capacity. That could just be for something. Well, it could be internal capacities of coaching and any type of therapeutic, whatever is necessary for that person. And then there's actual function of doing the job, administrative assistance, professional services, and so on. And they're there for a function. And at that point, you're not getting like the family or the close friends feedback where it's either overly niceties or odd judgments because they feel they're being left behind and so on. But I think the alignment window is a very interesting one to have like people that are like, hey, I really need feedback here. Okay, I'm willing to accept this and receive it. Help me out. That type of thing.
We talk about you're the product of the 5 people you hang out with the most, right? You
Absolutely.
surround yourself with the most. So have a look at those 5 people. I challenge everyone out there, write them
Yeah.
down. Are they open minded? Are they curious? Are they forward thinking? Are they supportive of your ideas and what you're trying to do? Because quite often I've seen this. I've seen this when people start to lose weight and get healthier, get stronger, get fitter, more well, more vibrant, more energetic, and they're out to dinner with their friends, and their friends start picking on them. You
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
oh, you're not having the
Absolutely.
dessert. Oh, you're not staying. Hey, let's go out partying with us.
Yeah.
Oh, no. It makes them feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? So it makes your friends feel uncomfortable. I've seen some, I've got some very successful friends
Sure.
in their own right, particularly from a business perspective. And I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of them and what they've done and developed from a young age. I can think of some other people that are in our circles that will talk behind them about them
Mm.
behind their back. It's interesting because it threatens them.
Yeah.
It makes them always feel like they're not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not good enough because that's the level. So that's the comparison piece again, right?
Absolutely.
It's the
Yeah.
same themes going
It
around,
is.
right?
Yeah.
So it's that comparison to put that person in.
Yeah. The comparisons or the applied jealousies and into some of those. So
If you've got a friend that's being a bit negative on your goal sets, I want to start this hobby,
yeah.
whatever this is, this new relationship, lean into it.
Mm-hmm.
I heard this quote the other day. Oh my goodness, I'm going to butcher this as well as avoiding tough conversations is not keeping the peace, it's maintaining the tension.
Mm.
It's maintaining the tension.
Yeah.
Have that conversation with someone. Hey, when I bring this up, your first response is usually a negative one. Is there something you're seeing I'm not?
Interesting.
Ask your friends. Oh yeah, I'm just worried about you. I don't want you to invest all your money or your
Yeah.
time into this girlfriend or boyfriend or why? What is it that scares you? Do you know, I'm scared that you're going to move away, be successful, and I'm not, and I'm going to be left here.
Yeah.
Ah,
Absolutely. Or maybe they see something you don't too.
yeah,
but
but either way, I think
no, but yeah, I agree.
let's ask our friends more often and the people around us.
Yeah. Having that honest feedback, that's a very fascinating thing because I think there's so many niceties and we tend to, I don't want to say, again, I don't want to overgeneralize, but I think a lot of times there are the times when we surround ourselves with people that are just either they're just disengaged and they're like, yeah, that's fine. They're dismissive of it. Yeah, I think finding those is also shows a sense of vulnerability in oneself, the ability to, I truly want to improve. I really want to hear feedback of where my either shortcomings or where my perceived weakness is so that I can take the time and improve that because I'm extending myself somewhere I've never been before. So I don't know what this is going to be.
And you want to give people a soft landing as well. And by the
Yeah.
way, not asking for feedback or not asking or not connecting with your friends like this or acquaintances is a form of self-sabotage.
Mm.
Oh no, I can do this. I got this. No, not listening. That's a form of self-sabotage as well because you're closed-minded, you're not
Yeah.
open, you're not curious. I'm
Oh,
stuck in
interesting.
my ways.
That's interesting.
And next thing I go down a path and then I go, oh, didn't work.
That's interesting. So I think that's a lone wolf syndrome where somebody will, and I use the word in a vacuum, they'll take it back and I'll be like, no, I'm going to shut the world out. I'm just going to build this in the background. And if it fails, nobody knew. I'm okay. I'm going to hide here.
I've been guilty of that in the past.
Absolutely. I think most people have. I definitely have too. But sometimes it's not a bad thing. And I want to give that idea some grace because sometimes I think you do need to try things. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe you're not good at it, whatever that is, or there's a heavier lift for it. Maybe the desire was there and you started doing it. And I'm like, I don't really know. So I want to there is some grace in that window, but I do recognize what you were saying as far as that disengagement of the world or in somehow not taking the feedback from the external and trying to control the environment. That is really a form of self-sabotage because it has to be created in the environment modification. It has to be created in the larger scope, into some degree, depending on what it is. There's a co-creation of the world out there.
I love that word, by the way, co-creation. Yeah. It's a co-creation. It's how we were designed.
It is how we're designed.
To co-create.
Right. And if you're going to change and affect your surroundings, it will impact the world in some way, shape, or form, whether it big or small, and you will receive feedback. The true engagement, the true big, and we're talking about there's little goals and there's big goals, but to make true change, it will require the world to either evolve around you, change with you, you will impact.
Mhm.
It will, and you'll get feedback one way or the other.
Yeah, you're going to get feedback for sure. So I think we've covered some good topics here. It's the people you surround yourself with.
Hmm.
I think environment is interesting. Okay, it's an interesting one as well. Have you set yourself up in the right environment to get to where you need to be? Because if nothing changes, right?
That's true.
Okay,
Yeah.
nothing changes, nothing
So
changes.
changing either location or your vocation with work, or your, when you know you have to make a large scale change, or again small, either there's going to be, you understand that there's something I had, there's internal work and there's external work, and I guess laying that out effectively. I know that it, to some level too, we're going to hit, when we want to make change, we're going to hit some roadblocks, we're going to hit some resistance, some hurdles, some walls, whatever that looks like. And you're going to, we all succeed in many different ways. We do. This isn't, we're not all walking around self-sabotaging, because this world wouldn't be perpetuating going on. So there's massive success in our lives, but we're talking about specifically the times that we do get derailed. And but those times that we really do the other side of that, when we succeed, nothing's getting in our way. And we're going to change our environment. We're going to go through that with the courage and the recognition of
When there's momentum,
the momentum.
when
That's a
there's
beautiful word.
momentum, that's what I talked about before. There's one thing, you do one thing, you
Mm-hmm.
do it, you do another thing, and I
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah.
and it feels good. It elicits a response, a feeling, right? And energetically, I do one thing and then one thing and one thing, and I feel good. That's the momentum.
Yeah.
Knowing that at some point we'll do something that sets us back, or we'll take a few days off, or something will happen. But that doesn't mean we stop.
Right.
We get back on it. And there's a real theme amongst successful people is this knowing that if I continue, things will open up.
Right. And even through that point of feeling like Sisyphus, where you're pushing the rock up the hill every single day, that will change. It will evolve. You'll get stronger. It'll become
And it's
easier.
a
And
mindset of
yeah,
being glass half full and optimistic, by the way,
absolutely.
being an optimist and an optimist with
Yeah.
realism in there as well. Glass half full. There's a lot of people out there that'll go to the negative every time you say something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
By the way, that's
Absolutely.
a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but
It's
a lot of people don't realize they're doing it to
right.
themselves. I
Yeah.
could
I
never
think
do
it's a way
that,
of
or I can't do that.
separation. It's a way I don't have to take acknowledgement. I don't have to take ownership over it. If I criticize it, I can get rid of it. I don't, yeah. So
I don't have to take the risk.
I don't have to take the risk. I don't
Because
have to expose myself. I don't have to, yeah.
all of this, there's an element of risk, maybe tiny
Yeah.
or maybe bigger. There's an element of risk, right? To
That
get to
is
where,
true.
as you
Yeah.
started, the whole conversation is about moving forward towards something. There's an element of risk involved. Leaving the familiar behind and moving forward to the unknown,
Right.
there's an element of risk. And I could fail at any step of the way.
Correct.
But here's the thing: if you release and let go and become mindful of this, that I will fail.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
ultimately you'll succeed. But you're going to learn through those failings, and that's the self-awareness. And that's why I go back into that mindfulness and journaling and reflecting and taking notice and go, so I don't do the same thing time and time again.
That discipline of repetition. Interesting.
Discipline's an interesting
Yeah.
word. It's come
Yeah.
up for me in the last 3 or 4 days multiple times. You've mentioned it twice or 3 times today,
Have
which
I?
is
Yeah.
funny because it's my word that keeps coming up over the last few
Interesting. And I
days.
only remember saying it once. That's funny that I said it. That is
Well, I'm
awesome.
very hyper aware of it.
Yeah.
Is
Interesting.
because at the moment I'm lacking a bit of discipline. And this is interesting. I've always been
It's
so
interesting.
disciplined. People
Yeah.
would say to me, "You're disciplined." The way in sports when I was
Yeah.
younger, or training, or in business, and I was focused and I was disciplined. What I've found recently, I'm lacking a bit of discipline. I'm a little bit loosey goosey with things.
Interesting.
And I've found, and by the way, it's all linking up. I spend too much time scrolling on Instagram
Okay.
when I don't need to. When I need to be doing something, get on there, I look at something, I just wasted a whole lot of time. I didn't need to do that, but I
Yeah.
knew I was doing it, which is more of the problem for me at the moment. But I knew I was doing it, but at least I'm aware of that.
So there are times, I agree. There are times where I'll run the clock out, or I'll pause the clock in my mind, where I'm like, I need to. And now some of it, I don't know if is all bad. Some of it, a lot of the times, there is a bit of a waste of a time frame. But I'll pause the clock because sometimes I'm too wrapped up, and I actually do need to. It's maybe not fair to say, to dumb the situation down a little bit. I need something to bring just pull myself out of my own butt.
I love that you said that, because I've seen that in you. I know
Yeah.
you a little, and I've seen you do that because you're such a high thinker.
Yeah,
You get
no, I
caught up.
appreciate that. I do. I get caught up in my thoughts, and I actually need to bring it back down.
Yeah.
So I need to do something that's a little bit mindless. I actually intentionally, whether totally intentionally, but I plug myself into the matrix a little bit, I give it over to that, but I pull it back in a relatively short amount of time, because it helps to get me back on a little bit of track because I'll get lost in my thoughts and stuff. So I'll do that. And there was actually another good point. It wasn't, I don't think it was about the discipline necessarily, but I think that there's also a sense of, we were talking about flexibility and fluidity, and discipline is an incredible, it's fair to say, tool or process. Same thing, show up same way. You're going to incrementally, you're going to be able to move forward. But I also do believe that there is times in our life that we do need to be like water. We do need
Yeah.
to be fluid, because when we're going to make a big, and this is again, big change, little change, all to scale, judgment, whatever. But when we're trying to make big changes in our existence, it's, I believe there is a sense of, you have to be fluid to fill the new
Mm.
gaps and build those around it, and then start to create disciplines around
You
those.
can still be fluid and disciplined.
I believe, yeah, I think you're right
I
too.
think
Sometimes there's I don't, sometimes I think the scales tip a little bit here and there personally, but
the scale's always tippy though,
yeah,
and when it's life. But I think there's so many distractions,
sure.
and I think it's particularly on, say, on our phone that we carry around
Yeah.
everywhere. There's so many distractions. It's easy to be distracted. So I think it's the discipline to not be distracted, or try and avoid just even looking at the phone.
Yeah.
By the way, that's the first step. Just don't look at it.
Yeah, no, yeah.
If you look at it, you turn it up, you're going to look at it.
And when I say I intentionally plug into the matrix, I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not trying to pitch that. I'm just saying it's what I do as a form of pulling myself out of, when I get really into too intense into my own processes, where I'm not even producing. I'm so intense and lost in my thoughts, which is ties back into some of that stuff, is getting stuck in the daydreams and the fantasies of an outcome, but actually not taking those next steps to do it, getting lost in the thought of doing it, which is an odd, I know maybe that sounds a little bit of an odd scenario, but recalibrating to come back. What is that next step? And we do have to, sometimes we have to utilize our own tools, even if they're not the prettiest ones. I'm going to give myself some grace. Sometimes you just have to implement the down and dirty tool to get through to the next step. And then once you can get back on track, you can clean it. You can go on more discipline, a little bit more fluid into the environment. That's just how I see that process. It's not a fit for every time, but
No, it makes sense. And
yeah,
the fluidity is just mean that lack of resistance, pushing up
yeah,
against something, doesn't mean you're surrendering.
yeah.
Although I concept of surrendering and
I was gonna
mindfulness
say
is
that's a really interesting one.
I,
Surrendering into it.
I like
I
to
like that
surrender
too.
when I'm practicing mindfulness and meditation. It doesn't
Interesting.
mean giving up.
No, not at all. I
But
think it's
there's,
actually the opposite.
you know, and a lot of the time, interesting one is we focus on the things we can't control.
Sure.
And so that's the surrender or the fluidity piece, because there's certain things I
God, I like
cannot
that a lot.
control. I cannot control the way someone else responds to something.
Absolutely not.
Certain things in the media I can't control. Politically, I cannot influence. But it's just knowing that instead of pushing up against it, going with it a little bit more,
Absolutely.
and seeing where you can influence and change the outcome.
I wonder if there's some self-sabotage there too, when you're really pushing hard. I wonder. I don't know if that would be a really subconscious, deep level. Is I know that there's so many times where I'll just keep pushing and pushing into it,
and then people pull away.
Yeah, people pull away, or the situation maybe dissolves, or the opportunity kind of flutters away, or whatever. Oh, and without giving, I guess, trying to think of a good example of this, I think that we have a goal set and we really try, we really do. And then there's the idea too, of course, there's the influences of the world, of the manifestation and the visualization and the ease of process and all these influences. And we don't know those next steps. So instead, I'll just get down and grab the proverbial broom or the shovel and just work at it, even if I'm not really making the progress I want to.
Can I jump on something?
Yeah, please.
Intention and attention. Okay.
Yeah.
I really enjoy watching some TV shows.
Mhm.
I switch off, it's mindless. Sometimes when I've got projects on, that's probably not the thing I should be doing in the evening. But it's very easy because if I put my attention and intention and attention on something, it means I'm not putting it somewhere else.
Correct. Yeah.
There's so much I need to be doing on my business or projects and things I want to do, and I'm excited about. But then I'm watching like TV for a couple of hours on a Saturday afternoon, evening, when I could be doing something else on this. For me, I feel that's a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah, absolutely. It is.
Or putting my attention on something that I know I'm very familiar with, because I'm avoiding putting my attention on this project that I know I should be doing, which is going to financially help me, is going to help me in other areas of my life. But I
Right.
put it on what I know. And next thing I'm working on this and I'm going to flow on this,
Yeah.
which I know, but I really need to be focusing on that.
Right.
And I know that I'm self-sabotaging myself.
That's
I,
true.
I,
That's true.
stop doing this, stop doing that, focus on that. And by the way, after 10, 15 minutes focusing on that, I get into a flow and I love it because I know it.
Absolutely.
And then I'm off.
Yep. And I would say, even at a minimum, I know exactly what you're talking about too. And at a minimum, let's say I'm not able to achieve exactly flow in that scenario. At minimum, what I've done is I'll write my lists. I'll get my detailed list when I know. So when I'm ready to re-engage the next morning or the next day, I'm coming in with a greater level of intention and discipline and focus onto that. So instead of the time on the TV, I'll take that time to to prep effectively, so that I know that when I do, I am ready to engage, and it's effective use of the time. So that comes into the benchmarks and setting expectations in that
Here's one
arena.
for you, and this is only really coming to mind right now, is the concept of self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
Self-sabotaging your day.
Oh yeah, for
Okay.
sure, for
So
sure.
I'm a big believer in morning routines.
Okay.
You set up the morning right
Yeah,
and you're off.
yeah,
For me, I'm the most productive in the morning by a million miles. And forever I've got up, I've done my practice, get up early, do my practice, head out of the house and go get some movement in, and then get on with my day. What I'm finding at the moment is that's taking up the movement piece is taking up too much time for me. So what I'm
yeah,
practicing at the moment is get up, do mindfulness meditative practice,
yeah.
check in for the day, and then get into my thinking work and creative work.
Okay,
I have no problems with going to exercise or move. Do that afterwards.
okay.
Okay.
So
Instead of
you flipped it.
I flipped it, and
Okay.
I'm testing that out now,
Yeah,
and it's working for me
yeah,
because I need to move. It's good for my head, but I need to get this creative work, and
yeah.
and I'm not
I
very
agree.
good in the afternoon with those things. And then in the afternoon, set up my meetings when I need to be on calls, because when I'm on calls, I'm there and there. It's good. But if I have to do my creative stuff in the afternoon, I get distracted. If I have to go exercise in the
Yeah,
afternoon, forget it.
right.
Does that make
That's yeah.
sense?
It
So
makes perfect
I'm
sense.
really looking at my day, framing out my
Yeah.
day.
When it comes to movement and exercise, me personally, if I don't do it right away, it just doesn't
It
happen.
doesn't
It
happen, right?
doesn't happen. It's too easy to get sidewinded or distracted, or even when I do, if I know that I have an hour window that I could go and do some type of movement in, I actually, this is another level. I actually feel guilty for one. I feel like I should be doing work or whatever. That's another level of it. But
Is that a form of self sabotage?
absolutely,
That is
absolutely,
right.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
guilt,
Yeah, oddly placed guilt. It's not fair to say
guilt.
oddly placed. It's just
No, no,
guilt.
the
Just
guilt. A form of self
yeah,
sabotage.
guilt. I suffered from guilt quite a bit throughout my adulthood. I just
Guilt,
what
guilt's
I
an
would say,
awful
it's
emotion,
an
isn't it?
awful emotion for no, and I would just say no. I want to say no reason, but no reason. Majority of it was absolutely no reason. Just walking around feeling guilty. I'm like, I didn't do anything like to merit guilt. It was more like this guilt of I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I should be achieving this, I should
Should
be
be.
here, and I could have done this, I could have done that, and it's just all these things.
Shoulda, coulda.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, and I lived in that, and I lived so much, and I honestly, it probably wasn't until the last few years when I was able to start releasing guilt into my late 40s.
How
I
did you
was,
do that? How did you
that's a
do that?
great question. I really wish I could give you some insightful,
I
wisdom
am
based answer.
guessing there was an element of awareness, so that
There was definitely a level of awareness that the patterns didn't, I don't want to say didn't pay off. I'm trying to think the a level of comfort within my and security within who I am. And again, I'll just say grace. I say this a lot in the videos, is giving myself grace, because it's very difficult. I think it's very hard on myself as far as the shoulda, woulda, couldas, beating myself up all the time over those. So there's a level of comfort, a level of ease that I've allowed myself, being more present in the now, and not just the mental now, but the physical now. And
presence.
so the presence, that's really helps a lot too, because I'm not living in the future. For me, it wasn't the past as much. We all have those little times where we think about some odd conversation that we get hung up on, but I think for myself, it was future, and I'm still guilty of it. Future. Need to be this, need to do this. I've got to achieve that pressure of, for me specifically, of a father and the husband and the
Yeah.
family, and I've got to take care and I've got to provide and I've got to do what's right and the moral compass of life and all those pressures of the achievement of that. So I know that's and it's not that I've let go of that, but I like the word when you said surrender. I think there is a sense of surrendering into the acceptance
And that's
of
not
the
giving up.
presence. Yeah, and it's
It's,
actually the opposite of giving up. That's me being more engaged and more present into what I'm who I am and what I'm trying to achieve in my life. So for me, the surrender is actually it's incredible empowerment. And when I say surrender, I'm not just surrender. I'm going to lay on the couch. I give up. Absolutely. So I surrender into what I want to have an extraordinary life with me and my family and my sphere of people, and I'm surrendering into that idea. I'm allowing that idea to that energy to absorb
mm,
into my sphere, into my field. So that's the surrender of an allowance of something beautiful. And but applying, that's why I was talking about applying work hard. It's almost like over applying grit, where in the old antiquated world was we wore it like a badge of honor of I work 7 days a week and I have 14-hour days and I can sustain this for the next 30 years. And it was a really industrialized mindset that everybody was very, proud of that.
yeah.
But then enter the guilt, and that, I guess that's where I'll go back to that, because it's just an observation. It's not, this story is not about me. It's about the recognition of anybody that's listening, is converting that guilt of what I was supposed, feeling I'm supposed to be working 14 hours a week to have, or 14 hours a day just to have value in this world and contribute to it, versus surrendering and being very intentional and being and putting out a higher quality of
There's
energy.
so much generational conditioning
Yeah,
into what you're saying,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely there is.
that generational conditioning and stereotyping and the way we
Yeah.
should show up, and when we don't, and by the way, when it feels good when we start living our life authentically, but we feel we should look and feel like
Yeah.
that I can see where guilt comes. Well,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah,
that's where
absolutely.
guilt comes
And
in.
and oddly enough, this is actually where I started out. One of the earlier conversations we had on this in this conversation was about, I was saying, where's that the source code coming from? Where does that script come from? Is it an internal script? Am I writing the unknown path of journey? Or is this that societal end game influence of I'm supposed to be this? This was implied, this was imposed on me, these thoughts, this. So I'll just tie it back to some of that mind frame. And again, coming back to being aware of it, the recognition of it, identifying the patterns, and not, I don't want, maybe this isn't the right way to say it, but not allowing those patterns to sabotage my path.
If you were to give some quick, not quick, but if you were to give summarize and give some tips for self sabotage or people who feel they're self sabotaging, maybe don't
Right.
know why, what would they be?
That's to distill it down into it's going to come back to a lot of the things that we said in this conversation. But in essence of, I think, the recognition, God, there's so many aspects of it. I'm going to actually flip it onto you. Do you have a
Okay.
good answer for this? Because I
I
do, but I'm going to start rambling, and I want to be a little more concise, because I
no,
do have an answer, but it's more of a ramble.
I
So
think if for anyone out there that feels like they're self sabotaging on repeat,
there we go.
okay,
Okay,
self
good.
sabotaging on
Yeah,
repeat,
good framing.
start to write this down. Okay, start to write it down. And if you don't know where to start thinking, like, what are the patterns you have? Okay, what are the patterns that are showing up? And if the sabotage is in relationships, dig in there.
Yeah.
What is it? Try and identify what that is. Sense into the resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just think up here. Sense into the resistance, because there's a resistance here. It usually feels like fear, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
guilt. What is that? What is that? So sense into that for sure. Identify that. Also look at the people you hang out with. Okay, the 5 people you surround yourself with. Are
Mm-hmm.
they adding to you? Are they sucking out of you? What does that look like? Doesn't mean you have to cancel your friends, but you should be
Yeah.
aware of what's
What that
happening to
exchange
you.
looks
Okay,
like.
start to make lists of where you are most lit up,
Mm-hmm.
most productive. Okay, and why,
Yeah.
and why. Okay, and then you'll start to identify where you work best and where the things that are drawing you into and the environment for self sabotage, because it's an environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a stagnant pond. What's that environment for self sabotage look like for you? Because it looks different to different people, right?
Yes.
And it will usually happen when you're out of your comfort zone, when you're heading into the unknown, that will sabotage it to bring it back to the known.
Beautiful. I think that was well said. I'm not going to add to that. That's perfect. All right, let's end here.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah,
Appreciate it, man.
absolutely.
Good
Absolutely.
chat.
Have a